Okay, that brings us to today's specialized training in the portion of the briefing, guys. So formation rejoin, as you know, last time we flew, we talked about departures. I'm sorry, overhead brakes. This is going to be our departure and en route rejoins that we're going to talk about today. Basically, this is just going to be something that helps give us the SOPs that we need so that we can do it unconsciously every time. So why do we train with these? Well, we come from different countries and we fly different airplanes, and there's different procedures for different mission sets. Well, these give us a base foundation of standardized procedures that are simple enough to remember and understand, but they're also universal enough to use across airplane platforms within reason, and across countries. Like, if you're an RAF pilot, or if you're a U.S. pilot or U.S. Navy pilot, these will make some sense to you. And then when I say within reason on the universal SOPs, obviously if you're flying an A-10 that's going slow and ugly, you're not going to be able to keep up with the F-16s or the F-14s and stuff like that. But if you're in a like strike fighter or semi-fast fighter jet, these will apply. And we're going to use these during all takeoff and rendezvous. And these will be pretty much considered, unless otherwise brief, they'll be standard. So if you don't hear anything about a different speed or a different side or a call for the rejoin and everything, then it's just assumed that these are going to be what we're going to use. We're going to practice them on each sortie so they become automatic. And I'm not just saying each training sortie, but each real sortie. As a matter of fact, every time you guys go a couple weeks without flying or without doing a rejoin on somebody, it might be a good idea to review this video and then review the content package, and even get with somebody and just go through, during the brief, say, hey, I haven't done this in a while, can we review the briefing contracts and all that and stuff like that. So we're going to cover this in every training brief from here on out until you're finished with your basic training. And I'm going to have the IPs teach this as an AWG standard, because this is just a homogenation of all the rules that I was able to find across the service and across working with Tyro across the international lines too. So we've got two types of rejoins we're going to do today. We're going to do straight-ons and during turns. Now, it's straight on is pretty much self-explanatory. You're during departure, you're in a straight line. We've either taken off and already made our initial turn, a few degrees off of left and right, and we're stabilizing a climb. And whether we're runway heading tracking up to 10,000, or if we're turning out past the racetrack at Nellis, this is used when you're doing the straight in. So dash 2, go ahead and join on the left. Dash 3 will go direct to the right, and dash 4 will go to direct to dash 3's right wing. And that puts us in a finger 4 formation that allows us to have a flexible fighting wing if I need to kick out, if the flight lead needs to kick out dash 3 and 4 to go bracket or go, basically take a combat spread to the right. Now, if you're in a turn, it's going to be a little different. Everybody in the flight's going to join on the inside. And I got clarification from Tyro. What we're going to do is we're going to have 3 and 4 will join on 2, and once 3 and 4 are saddled together, they will move in unison over to the right wing. Does that make sense? And it made good sense why Tyro told me this, because if 3 gets there early and then moves over, 4, because 3 is going to be stepped down a little bit, 4 may have a confliction about crossing under the flight and having a clear space. So 4 would have to go down even actually further. So if he did have an overshoot or an underrun, he'd have to go down. So inside the turn right, though, is a little different. Everybody's going to join on the inside turn, and then as soon as 2 gets established in position and 3 and 4 have shown up, 2 just simply moves over to the right side, even during the turn. And then 3 and 4 just close in during the turn. So, a little bit of, all it takes is a little light stick pressure to just get in there and watch your overrun. Whatever you do, make sure you don't go belly up and lose sight. So on today's mission, as we do, all of our comm plans already been covered. Our mission set is going to be to go out to the range and do some aerobatic maneuvers and tack form. And just want to run down the checklist right now. Remember your contracts. Got a slide coming up for that. Watch out for those closure speeds. Kind of be aware of those. Know where you're at and what bracket you're supposed to be in. Remember, the speeds that I'm going to give you here in a second are maximums. You don't have to go all the way to the maximum, but try to use those as a speed limit when you're doing your closure within certain ranges. Anytime you're going to change position in the formation, make sure you check your turn and clear the airspace around you, and then always know your exit. Your exit's always going to be down and under, unless you have a conflict there and something's in your way, then you're going to have to improvise it. But that's why we use the closure speed, so that we don't have any of those emergencies like that. Here's the contracts.
Hey, Juice.
Yes.
Sorry to butt in. I just forgot that I didn't brief, or remembered rather, that I didn't brief Charlie. What time do you guys want to Charlie at?
Let me poke you with that in a minute. We're right in the middle of the
Sure
briefing.
thing. Cool beans.
Okay, I'll check with you in a minute. Okay, guys, so our contracts are going to be as follows. Standard lead's going to fly a 300 knot rejoin, 50 knots overtake if you're greater than 2,000 feet away. Now, if we're using yardstick, you'll know how far you are within nautical miles. And 2,000 feet is 1,800 feet is 0.2 on the DME scale when you get that. So if you're just above, if you're between 0.2 and 0.3, go ahead and assume 50 knots overtake. And then if you're below 0.2 but 0.1, then you're inside 1,000 feet, and you're going to come in at 25 knots. 0.1 is 800. So you got 800, or see what? Yes, 800 and then 1,600. And so on. No, it's 600, 600, 1,200. So if you're 0.1, go ahead and assume 25 knots. And then if you're inside of 0.1 and you're visual on lead, you're doing 15 knots. However, the only difference is if in your turn, left or right, you're going to slow that closure speed inside 1,000 to 10 knots. The reason for that is you're basically closing on an arc, and the target's actually moving towards you as you're closing on them from the inside turn. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, it does.
And then you can see I've got a graphical breakdown on the left side. The way to read this chart is start at the bottom, and that's one of the key points is it's really good to keep lead just outside the HUD uprights the whole time, and that puts you in to be right about the 250 to 300 foot of beam. And I believe Prickly tested this the other night in the Viper, and you got the same results, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. You spotted that, and it's kind of like this training came out and said, hey, wait a minute, it works in the Viper too. And then it's neat how that's worked that way, right?
Yeah, it was pretty cool actually. It's kind of nice. Saved a lot of guesswork actually.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have any more questions before we push for Charlie time?
Just one. When we formed on inside echelon left on an inside turn, if it were a left turn, when 3 chooses to move across, and is there any voice indicate or signal required from 3 to 4, or is it just 4's job to follow 3's lead?
It's 4's job to always follow 3's lead and anticipate.
No comms required.
No comms required. Remember, you guys going to know your waypoint nav plan. You're going to know when, everybody should know, but be following along and keeping up on our waypoints. Everybody should know, hey, he's coming up on waypoint 3, waypoint 4, because we all have the same nav programmed into our cartridge. So we're going to be able to do that. So it's just a matter of just waiting for 4 to get in position, and then you just slowly glide down and then glide over and get back in position like that. And it depends. If we're in a non-tactical situation and comms are free, you can talk about it and everything. And if we're in a tactical situation, it's going to be brief, and I'm just going to look, and if I don't see you where I'm supposed to see you, then I may do some type of either wing rock or a signal to say, hey, what's going on? And that's going to throw -2 off real big time. So again, just that's why it's important to cover this in the brief and to cover these as SOPs, so everybody knows what they're assumed to be doing. So any other questions?
Not right now.
Okay, let's move on in the briefing, and then we'll settle up with ATC and make sure we get our flight plan filed. Thanks for your attention on this, guys.